this is a load of old twaddle. It's really going to need some serious editing. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. My name is Leslie, and this is a knitting, crochet, general yarn craft vlog from the south coast of England, and you're very welcome. If you're a returning viewer, lovely to have you back again. If you're coming across this for the first time, hello, I hope you enjoy what you see. And I'd like to start with a few thank yous. A big thank you to everyone who watches, everyone who likes, everyone who hits the subscribe button or the like button or all the buttons. Thank you very much for that. And also thank you to people who have recommended me. So Tina from Simply Stitches, I know, has mentioned me this month. And I'm sure there are others, so apologies if I'm not including everyone. But thank you so much. It means a great deal. So yeah, thank you very much. This month there will be, later in the podcast, the winners of the giveaway, which is some lovely yarn from Ducky Darling's Yarn. So thank you again to Hayley for the prize, and look forward to drawing that out. Thank you to everyone who's entered. And apart from that, it'll be my usual twaddle and blather. As I say, this is a knitting, crochet and general yarn craft podcast. It's called Not Quite Enough Yarn because I actually have quite a lot of yarn, but I rarely have enough. That was rarely, by the way, not really. I rarely have enough to make a whole item with just one colour or type of yarn. So I have to get a bit creative with colour blocking, fading, striping, you name it. I'm very much into putting things together to see what can be done. So that's it. You'll see my many works in progress. I'm having a real make all the things, cast on all the things, start all the things month. So there are lots of projects on the go. This means there won't be much in the way of finished objects. So doesn't do a lot for my gratification, and I'm sure it doesn't do a lot for yours either. But there's a lot of stuff happening. A lot of progress has been made on some of the existing projects this month. I mentioned casting on all the things, and strictly speaking not a cast on because it's crochet, but I have started a scarf, and I've mentioned previously that later in this year I'll be doing a craft fair. I belong to the local WI, and at the end of October they have a craft fair and I'll have a stall. So I'm making things to try and sell. And mostly it's scarves. I will be doing some of my other crafts as well. I do polymer clay jewellery, so I'll be exhibiting some of those pieces and hoping to sell them. And we'll just have to see how it goes. It's given me a bit of a focus in terms of yarn. It's given me a way of thinking about what I've got in my stash, especially the stuff that's been there for a long time, and what I can use it for. And not thinking, oh well, that's got to be mixed with this and this to make an item that would fit me as a garment, but thinking about smaller accessory projects. So that's what we've got with this, and such pretty yarn. Now I hope that you can see this okay, and also a big thank you to everyone who gave feedback on the change of camera. I went from using my phone to using a camera that I'd been given as a gift last year, and you've told me what I was delighted and hoping to hear, that the colours are coming through much better on this camera. So I'm hoping that will do justice to these lovely yarns. So this is, as you can see, just a very early stage beginning of a scarf. Simple crochet chevron pattern. I've used this pattern lots of times. I've got a big Afghan blanket that I made using scraps, using this pattern because it's fairly easy, mindless. Once you've got it established, you're good to go. The yarn, I hope you can see that it's sparkly and pretty, and it's absolutely lovely. I have family in Cornwall, and this is some Cornish yarn that I bought when I visited them a couple of years ago. It's by Perrin Yarns. I'm hoping you can see that. So that's Perrin Yarns, and it's 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% gold stellina, and it's called Jewel Mania, and it is just very, very pretty. So greens, browns, sort of mauvey, pinky purpley sort of colour. Not colours that I would ordinarily put together, I have to say. If I was going through my stash and looking for colours to put together into an item, I wouldn't stick these three together, but I really like the way they look. The brown colour sort of gives a nice neutral against the lovely jadey green and the sort of purpley colour. So yes, that's very early days, as you can see, but I'm just going to keep going until the yarn runs out. So this is a 4-ply fingering sock weight type of yarn, and I'm doing this on a 2.5mm crochet hook, I think. No, a 3mm crochet hook. I must stop telling lies. And yeah, really simple, but I felt like starting something new. I've got to stop doing that. I'm going to end up being the whipped cream. No, not the whipped cream, the whip queen, and then I'll make something really small just so I can get something finished. Actually, there may be something that I will have finished by the end of this month, but we'll see on that one. Yeah, so pretty portable, easy to take anywhere, easy to work when I've got there. So that's where we're at. Don't know how long a scarf it will make, but I'm hoping it will make quite a nice one. And although these colours seem a bit rich for the summer months, by the time the craft fair happens, people will hopefully be thinking in terms of Christmas gifts. And I think these kind of jewelly tones, not too strong, but jewel tones, will make it a popular seller. There we go. Back at the crematorium. Apologies if there's any noise. It sounds like an aircraft going quite closely overhead. Actually, we're not that far from Gatwick, so I suppose anything's possible. Same hat that I'm working on, same blue hat, getting through it, but slowly. And yeah, last week we had the bathroom replaced, which was very glad it was done. I was especially glad when it was done. It's one of those rooms that you don't realise how much is in there until you have to empty it all out, because it holds the airing cupboard as well, so it was getting all the linen out of the airing cupboard and distributing it in various rooms upstairs. It was a good opportunity to sort out the linen and just keep what we need. I've got a load of towels to offer to a local dog shelter, and some bed linen that I'm not sure yet if I'll reuse the fabric or donate as bed linen. I'm still to decide on that. Very glad it was done. I found it quite difficult. I found the disruption quite difficult. I kept trying to keep a perspective, in that I know there are lots of people who would be in the world who'd be very grateful to have clear running water that doesn't kill them, that they don't have to walk 2 miles to get. I'm conscious of that. I'm conscious that, you know, closer to home there are people who would be grateful for a roof over their heads and our old bathroom, let alone our new one. But I was still finding the disruption of it very, very difficult. I'm not a very tidy person. You guys have seen my house, you've seen pictures of it, so you know that to be true. And I'm not a real kind of chaos person, but I'm at a level of untidiness that it doesn't take much for it to feel chaotic. So when there is disruption, I find that quite tricky to handle. But it was only a week, and it was worth it, because we have our new shiny things. We've got some painting to do. The guys who did the fitting said that they would do all the fitting, all the plumbing, all the wiring, all the tiling, but they don't do painting, so that's fair enough. We've got the ceiling to get painted and all the woodwork, so window frames, doors, so forth. Yeah, so that's all done, so that was very nice. And yeah, it's been really warm still. If you listen to British podcasters, you're probably sick of hearing about the weather. But to have this long a period of good weather, especially this early in the summer, feels very unusual. And yeah, the gardens are drying out and there's talk of hosepipe bans because we live on a small island, so there's no water anywhere to be had. Yes. But apart from that, it's same old, so I'm back at the crematorium. Slightly different view of it this time. I've parked in a different bit of the car park. Doing a bit of knitting before my ceremony, which is at lunchtime. And then on with the usual. I feel I should just add, actually, because I'm watching blokes in, three-piece suits walking around looking very warm, that although I've got my shoulders out at the moment, I do have a jacket behind me, which I will be using for my ceremony. I'm not that scruffy or desperate to cool down. So I will be properly presented in the appropriate manner for the appropriate service. But sitting in the car knitting, I just want to keep as cool as possible. If you've ever wondered why British podcasters talk so much about the weather, or British people talk so much about the weather, it's because it's so varied. There's that song 4 Seasons in One Day, and although that was actually written by an Australian, or possibly a New Zealander, I think they were living in the UK when they wrote it, because we can go from sun to rain, back to sun again, threat of hail in one day, quite often. But it's not been like that recently. Yeah, so it's all been very warm and sunny, and rather lovely, if you like that sort of thing. And so the logical thing for me to make has, of course, been slippers. There is a reason for this, apart from my obvious perverse lunacy. I have signed up for a 3-day mindfulness retreat later in the year in Scotland, and my experience of this suggests that there'll be an awful lot of no shoes, and I think it might get a bit chilly, and I don't like getting chilly. There's no need to get chilly, I knit for goodness sake. So I've made some slippers in anticipation of my trip, not for use on the journey. I think me walking through Paddington Station or King's Cross or whatever in these, even King's Cross with all its Harry Potter connections, is going to get me some strange looks if I'm walking through these with these on. But I've made these slippers. The yarn is Norrow Blossom. It was bought for me some time ago by a friend who says she watches this podcast, so we'll find out, won't we, Mandy? But thank you for buying me this yarn, if you even remember, but I do. And it's my own pattern. I did wonder about making my own pattern. It feels a bit of an ego project, like sort of laughing at your own jokes, which I do, so maybe I should just get over myself and get on with it. When I first designed it, I was interested in construction, and the pattern is the main length of the foot and to here is a mitre square, so it's all garter stitch. That forms the base of the foot and the sides. Then you do, picking up half of the stitches, a half size mitre square for the toe. Now there are some slippers with a similar construction available online. They then have mitre squares here which give a kind of pixie boot effect, a sort of a zigzaggy effect here, which wasn't what I was after. So instead I've picked up from about here the cast on stitches of the initial mitre square, and I've done a short row piece to make that final kind of wedge. So I think you can possibly see that better if I hold it like that, hopefully. So it then gives it a straight top. So that's the construction. Very simple, very straightforward, very adaptable. I did wonder if I needed to make this slightly different to the initial pattern, because the initial pattern was for double knit weight yarn and the Norrow Blossom is slightly thicker. But actually using the initial stitch count, which was 59 stitches for the initial mitre square and then everything else based around that. It's about right for my feet. I do have large feet. I am blessed / cursed with big feet. They used to joke at school I didn't keep the shoes, I just kept the boxes. Use those instead. But yeah, so these are my enormous slippers for my enormous feet. So yeah, the 59 stitches worked. Because it's garter stitch, it's quite stretchy anyway. So that's probably why it worked, even for my Sasquatch feet. I did modify the pattern slightly. Initially it has about 6 rows of rib, but I decided to go a little deeper, and in so doing I did the initial 6 rows without any change, but then I started to decrease here, otherwise you end up with the rib sort of coming up straight here and a bit baggy around the ankle. And the point of the rib, of course, is to keep them on your feet, so I don't want them sliding all over the place. Talking of sliding all over the place, this is something I may well do in woolly footwear, but I do have some, I can't remember what it's called, but non-slip stuff that you dot on, and that will hopefully make these relatively safe. I'm good at falling over. I am very good at, particularly at falling into the house. I come in with laundry or something, and there's a little lip over the doors, and I just fall over. Did it once with the dog in my arms, but I managed to let go of her, so that was good. Yeah, so these are my slippers. So Norrow Blossom. They were made on a 4mm needle. Not sure how relevant that is for the stitch count, but like I say, it's a very adaptable pattern. So if you have particularly small or particularly large feet, you could just adapt it. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I'll put the link in if anyone's interested. Don't feel you've got to make them just because it's one of mine, but it is a very quick knit, and yeah, very simple. And these are quite thick and cozy, so I won't be putting them on at the moment as our heat wave continues, but I am looking forward to using them in the chilly mists of Scotland, which should be good fun. Those of you who kindly watched the last episode may remember that I had on my dressmaker's dummy Enid the Come Here cardigan, which I've modified so much that it's barely the Come Here cardigan anymore, but I'm still going to call it that. The problem that I had last month was that the neck, it's a top-down item, and the neck had become really wide. It was like a sort of Bardot top. Sorry, we've got strange noises outside, brakes sounding, I'm not sure what's going on. And I was left not knowing quite what to do. And this is what I've done. Now, it's not the best shape, and bear in mind it does still need blocking, but I have built up the neck, which also enabled me to put a moss stitch border. It had started off with a garter stitch, but needed a moss stitch one. So that's what I've done, and I've done this through panels of short row shaping across the shoulders to build up. And the other thing that I'd done, I was really struggling with just the logic of it until it came to me all of a flash. Because I'm doing this as an asymmetrical neckline, this was coming straight across here, and of course it needs to go up slightly to match the other side. So that's what I've done. It's not perfect, but once it's blocked and on my peculiarly shaped frame, I'm sure it will look okay. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm now just knitting down the body, and I came up with the genius idea last month, because it had a kind of 50s vibe to it in my head, of making a slight A-line shape. And I went back to the pattern and realised that was in the pattern too. So well done me, that was genius. Dear me. I have now changed colour slightly. The yarn is Texere silk, and I've got 4 strands of silk along with a strand of mohair, a mohair mix by the Little Knitting Company. I ran out of one of the Texere silk yarns, which is a sort of pale salmon pink colour, So I'm now using a cream natural undyed sort of colour instead. I thought I had lots of those. I don't. I only have one in the silk. So we'll see what happens when I get to the end of that cone. Because what I've got left is going to have to match in with the colours that I'm already using, so it's then going to give it a stronger grey or blue or the red. I don't think I'll do two of the red, I think that would be too much, but perhaps the blue would work. But I'll keep you posted. That's where we're at with it. I'm relatively pleased with the shaping. Bit of a first for me in terms of trying this to get the shape right, and I'm fairly happy with how it's worked. So we'll just keep plodding now. We're on to sort of very simple knitting with it now, just knitting down, increasing every 10 rows or so until I get to the bottom / run out of yarn / board, then do a moss or a seed stitch border at the base, and we're done. I had a question on the Ravelry group from Nicola, who I think is Creative Explorer, and she was asking, excuse me, she was asking how I got into my professional life, the world of death and dying and being a celebrant. And interestingly, I noticed from just going to move my phone. That's better. I noticed from reading Nicola's information about herself that she works as a midwife. So obviously that's the other end of life, but traditionally midwives and funeral directors were very closely aligned. And oh, sorry, there's a tractor going past. Noisy people. Do you not realise I'm trying to record a podcast here? Thank you. Yeah, traditionally midwives were also involved with the laying out of the dead, so quite closely allied. I was going to say trades then, I'm not sure that's the right word, but professions certainly. Now I realise that for some of you not remotely interested in this, it's got nothing to do with yarn, and I completely understand that. So I will put a thing on the bottom of the screen to tell you where to flip forward to bypass this bit. So I'll put like a time, what time to go to go past this section. But thank you, Nicola, for asking. If anyone does have any questions, please go on the Ravelry thread and the Ravelry group rather, and I will endeavour to answer them. The joke response is welcome to my midlife crisis, and like all jokes, based in truth, but it actually goes back a little further than that. When I was in my 30s, I went to the funeral of a colleague. He was one of my bosses at work. He was only the ceremony happened on his 40th birthday. He was incredibly young, very short, sudden illness, terribly tragic. And he had a humanist funeral, though. So for those who are unfamiliar with that, a humanist funeral is one with no religious content at all. And I thought it was amazing. I remember coming home and saying to my husband, "That's what I want when I die." Never at that point thinking that I would end up taking those ceremonies. I was working for a finance company, building a pension, all those things. So didn't really think anything beyond, yes, that's what I want when I die. Fast forward a few years, my mother died when I was 39, so approaching the big 40. And the death of a parent and birthdays with a 0 on can have the impact of making you question your life choices, making sure you're still going in the right direction, that sort of thing. So I think there was this sort of general feeling of doubt, feeling a bit directionless, a bit lost. And then about 6 months after my mother died, a friend's husband died very suddenly. Again, very quick illness. That seems to be happening a lot. It makes it sound like everyone I know just kind of drops down dead. That's not the case, thankfully. But in his case, he had a stroke, and a week later he had another one, and it killed him. And she was understandably devastated. Now, my friend has a religious faith, but her husband didn't have one. So when it came to organising the funeral, she wanted some religious elements in because she needed them for her beliefs, but she didn't want it to be a great long sermon and anything too preachy. because of his non-beliefs. And because she's my friend and I love her and I wanted to make things better, I said to her, oh, well, if the vicar's horrible when you meet him, I'll do it. Well, thankfully, the Reverend Frank was an absolute sweetheart and he did a marvellous job, because had I taken that funeral, I would never taken another one. I think it would have just been awful for everybody. But it kind of planted a seed, and I genuinely woke up one morning with the thought, actually, I'd quite like to do that. Not to do his funeral, but to conduct funerals generally. So because the one that had impressed me so much was a humanist ceremony, I investigated with the British Humanist Association and eventually went on to train with them. And it was one of those... certain things kind of happened which made me realise that it was a good path for me. Firstly, I know there are lots of things in life that I cannot do. I think I've mentioned before that I come from a family of nurses. I'm the last person you'd want on a ward. I would be an emotional wreck and absolutely rubbish and not dealing very well with the physical side of that. Just don't. But when I saw the qualities and the talents and the skills needed to be a funeral celebrant, I looked down the list and I thought, I could do that. And that happened so rarely, I thought, well, that's got to be worth an application. And although I wasn't rejected for any of my lack of skill or ability or something intrinsically wrong with my character, I did get rejected, and they said there was no space for anyone in the area where I lived. And I was really, really disappointed. And that in itself proved very revealing, because I had slightly worried that I was doing this on a bit of a whim. It being less than a year since my mother had died, going through the grief of losing a friend. And, I was worried that it was just a bit of a whim and I was making a mistake. The amount that it upset me that I wasn't accepted. And this, like I say, it wasn't an outright rejection. It was, there's no space for you at the moment. Really surprised me and proved to me how much it meant. So I kept emailing every couple of months or so, just saying, still here, still keen. I didn't want to end up being a stalker, but I would have regretted it very, very deeply if they thought I wasn't interested and when an opportunity came along, someone else was given that opportunity. So I made sure that didn't happen. And probably about another 6 months, and things had changed. The person who did work in the area closest to me was looking towards retirement, or at least scaling down the amount of work that she wanted to do. So I was encouraged to go on the training, which I did. So yeah, I did. It was a 3-month training. Some of it residential, some of it being mentored and going out and visiting families and writing ceremonies. And in April of 2008, I finished the training. And in May of 2008, I did my first ceremony. So we've been celebrating 10 years this year. That's scary. And it has been an amazing experience, and I'm really grateful that I've been able to do it. I feel very fortunate. It's a very odd way to earn a living. There are inconveniences. I do a lot of antisocial hours, and that's something that it helps that I am just at home with my husband and my dog. We don't have children to worry about, or elderly parents to take care of, or those kind of situations. So I can just say to him, oh, you're cooking your own tea tonight because I'm off out visiting someone. Yeah, it's very flexible, but it sometimes isn't. But it is a huge privilege, and I can't imagine doing anything else. So much as in a couple of months' time I'm taking a break from it, it is only a break. Someone said to me, oh, maybe it's time to kind of rethink what you do. And I was like horrified. I was like, no, I just need a holiday. I don't need a change of career. I just need a couple of weeks off. And it doesn't matter what you do and how fulfilling it is and how much you love it. We all need a break. We all need a change of scene. But I am I can't imagine myself not doing this work. I hope I don't end up not doing it. I mean, that's reliant on other people. If I start doing it badly, then the phone will stop ringing pretty quickly. And yeah, just such an amazing profession. Can't believe how much I've waffled on about it. I'm going to edit this very severely. But whilst I've been chatting away, I think I've nearly got the ribbon finished on this hat. It's quite deep now. So nearly done. And I'm going to go and get myself a sandwich for some lunch before I go on to my next ceremony. Now you may remember the woven scarf that I'd started. Oh, apologies for noise outside, the door's open for fresh air and that whole breathing thing. Yeah, you may remember the scarf I started with the lovely warp. I'm still very pleased with this warp. And I tried to start doing a sort of checker pattern to it, but it looked like a dishcloth and it wasn't really the right sort of yarn for dishcloth. Then this variegated sock yarn, I started using that for all of the weft, but it kept coming up with big kind of uneven chunks of colour, which I wasn't so keen on. So I've decided to go for something a bit subtle, which is very unusual for me, and that is to use the paler cream colour, which I've got quite a bit of, and use that for all of the weft, which is then just having this quite subtle, I'm calling them ghost stripes, just coming through. So a bit of variation because it is sock yarn, but just a very subtle soft stripe coming through. So I'm hoping, third time lucky, this will be okay. Right, it's time once again for Roundup of Whips. And I'm going to confuse matters slightly by starting with a finished object, as I like to be contrary. Some of you have seen this on Instagram. Not very pretty, but very practical. A peg bag. And every time I mention the word peg bag in this house, someone starts singing da 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 da. It's an 80s British thing, so apologies if that reference is nothing to anyone else. I had a cloth peg bag which I'd had for I can't remember how long. I tried repairing it a few times when the seams started to go, but it really was giving up the ghost, so I thought I would make one. So yes, very simple bag shape, as you can see. I made it out of some assorted acrylic yarn that I keep in a big box. It's the stuff that's given away with magazines and that sort of stuff. All double knitting weight. I think I used a 3mm hook, I can't remember. But I just made a rectangle, which forms the basis of the bag, mostly in double crochet, that's UK terminology, single crochet US. A few rows of trebles, so read as doubles for US, until I got to the sort of length I wanted. And then just a couple of side panels. Started with a couple of stitches, increased to give it a pointed shape here, and then just worked up. Did the same for the other side. As you can see, I wasn't worried about matching anything. This is purely a utility item. And then just made some straps. I kept the hanger from the old peg bag, so it's a sort of child size hanger. And just put a couple of straps. And then these bits here are just to keep it on the hanger, working on the same principle as the stuff you get in blouses and dresses and so forth, so it doesn't slide all over the place. So small, quick make, but a very useful one. So now on to Roundup of Whips proper. So I shall need my list of whips. And the dog is coming to... No, she's going somewhere else. No fun, that dog. So first of all, the panel cardigan. So this is the panel jacket by Lapin. Slow but steady progress. Last time I showed you two pieces joined together. A third piece is still on the blockers. It's not still blocking, it's completely dry by now. But I tend to keep it there until the next one is ready so that I can keep all the pins in the right shape so that they all match. So I'm on to block number 3 or 4. And we're kind of this far round. It's got 160 rows. So I need to do another 40 on this piece and then I'll block it because obviously it's curling a lot because it's stocking stitch. The yarn is Araucania Ranco, which is a sock yarn, and just some Merino some king coal wool merino stuff for the hems and the seams. So more on that when there's something exciting to show you. Leaning forward now to pick up the ball of yarn I just dropped. Thought I'd better give you some warning for that. So that's the panel cardigan. The second item is the Faroes shawl. And I think since you last saw this, it's had quite a bit of work. Yeah, there's the marker from where you last saw it. So I've done some stuff. It's still at the very large stage. It started off with sort of 500 odd stitches. I'm decreasing 4 per row, but there are still a lot of stitches. I spoke previously about doing 20 rows of different types of patterns each time, but I thought it would have a nicer effect if I just did 20 rows of plain stocking stitch and this simple vertical lace. I'll see if I can hold it against that to make it show up a little better. That's a bit better, hopefully. The difficulty is lining these up. I think I've done it right. Let's hope so. The yarn is John Arbon Merino lace weight. That's used double, so that's the darker colour. And I'm holding it with some cobweb weight silk, which I'm trying to think who it's from. I'll put the details on the screen. Yeah, and so it just started very large, getting gradually smaller. It's sort of a slow and steady, fairly straightforward knit, even when I'm doing the lace panels or blocks. It's such a simple lace that it doesn't require a lot of concentration. It's quite a sociable knit. So that's the Faroes shawl. The next project is Come Here, which you've seen. You saw that demonstrated by Enid, my dressmaker's dummy. And that's coming along fine. I'm just now working down from the underarm down to the base. The next project is the Mystery Knit Along, which is the Osiris shawl, I think that's right, by Susanna IC. And it's not a mystery anymore because it actually finished about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm very behind. I think this is the end of section 2 and the whole thing has finished, and there were 4 clues to it. But happy with how that's coming along. Yeah, nice. Nothing much to say. Simple lace patterns. The colour work is done by slipping stitches rather than knitting, so it's sort of more of a mosaic type pattern, but not quite. But it's that kind of principle. And keeping going. The next section is quite a lot of the lace repeated, I think. And there will be a 4th colour introduced later. So I will plough on with this. It's quite big. It will be quite big when it's finished, which is one of the reasons why it's taken me a while. But I'm just going to keep going, and you'll see the progress as it happens. So that's the former mystery, now everyone knows what it looks like shawl. The next item is my sister's zip-up jacket, and good progress has been made on this. When I showed it to you last, I'd knitted to here. I've now finished the back. Very simple shape. It's an Anne Budd pattern from her handy book of sweater patterns, and it's the modified drop shoulder. So a little bit of shaping in, but still square edges, just in slightly at the armhole. She has chosen a cable pattern for the front, and I have started the front. And this is the cable pattern, which I hope you can see. This is from the book that I've shown you before, the Nora Garn book of cable source book, I think it's called. I offered my sister the book when she was staying and said, just pick out one you like. She picked out about half a dozen, and a couple I dismissed because they were quite small and simple, and a couple I dismissed because they were quite broad. They were quite broad panels, and there's only 40 something stitches here, so if you've got an enormous cable, I felt it would dominate too much. So this kind of, it's a bit like Goldilocks and the Three Bears with the porridge. It's neither too hot nor too cold. So that's where we are with this. Now I got to this stage and I suddenly thought I was going to put pockets in. And I am going to put pockets in. Normally I would make the facing for the pocket first and then pick up from the pocket and put the stitches from the main part on a stitch holder. Obviously I haven't done that, still could. I think I'm going to do a provisional cast on and then knit down for the pocket lining because I don't know what colour I'll be using. Hopefully this teal colour, which is Debbie Bliss Rialto Aran. If that doesn't work, then the darker blue is Drops Big Merino, so I can make the panel out of that, the lining out of that. And if I've completely miscalculated, and it wouldn't be the first time, then it will be some other random Aran weight yarn or 2 lots of 4-ply together. 4-ply? I can't employ, my lord. 2 lots of 4-ply together. So we'll see how we go with that, but I'm pleased with how the cable's coming out. The stitch definition is quite good with this yarn, so you can see that it is a cable, not just that I've got in a pickle. So that's Bev's jacket, the next project on the go. And I'm throwing things around here, but that's okay. The woven scarf I've shown you, and the divvy sweater is also doing well. And this is a burnout pattern. It's the Divi adult hoodie. And I think I just started the front last time. There's the back piece. It's going to be very big, very loose, and as it's 100% cotton, it's also going to be somewhat baggy. But I've now finished the front. This is it. As you can see, I wasn't alternating skeins, which is why we have a bit of a change of colour there. I don't care. It's a very cash sweater. I'm going to be very cash in my attitude towards it. It is, the red is Araucania Ulmo, 100% cotton. The white is Drops Muscat, and the beige is also the same Drops yarn. So the front has been done, the back has been done. I'm now working on the hood. Hoods are like sleeves, they're always so much bigger than you think they're going to be and take so much longer. But it'll all be worth it. It will then leave me with the question of what to do about the sleeves in terms of how much yarn, how big a block of each colour. It would make sense if I have the yarn to match, either do them all in red or match the number of rows to this. Although this is a drop pattern, drop shoulder pattern, so there's no shaping to kind of match it into. The sleeve is just going to come out from these markers here. So if I can do it all in red, I will. If not, I'll just have to divide the yarn in two and split it between the two sleeves. The reason why I have a bit of a dilemma is these pieces are knitted from the bottom up, and it would make sense to knit top down from the sleeves until I've run out of red and then take on the other colours. I think that will be okay with this pattern. There's a quick way to find out. How different does it look that way up to that way up? I think I can get away with that. There is a slight difference, of course, because of direction of travel, but I don't think it's enough to worry me. If not, alternating skeins didn't bother me. I think a direction change isn't going to cause me a problem. So that's what I'm going to do. Work the sleeves top down. I'm not going to pick them up. I'm still going to make them separately and then sew them in. But that way I'll be able to manage the yarn, use up all the red, and just put on the white as needed for the cuff. The other project I've got is the crochet scarf, which you've already seen, the one in the Perrin yarns. So that concludes the July episode of Roundup of Whips. Definitely need a fanfare. Right, lovely people, we're coming towards the end and it is giveaway time. So I have my hat, and I have in my hat all of the entries. Thanks again to everyone who took part. What this has done is given me loads of patterns to look at, because some of you have said, oh, I just want to make a hat or a cowl. Others have said, I want to make a specific pattern. So I shall be checking out those ideas, so thank you very much. If you can see, I'm rummaging in a fair fashion. And let's pull out a lucky winner. And the winner is Anne Crawford. And Anne would like Plum Fall for a lovely shawl. Just found your podcast today. I love your style. Well, bless you for saying I have a style. Thank you so much. So Anne, you are our lucky winner. I will get in touch. So you are winning the Plum Fall yarn. And I hope that you do make a lovely shawl. It will feel beautiful. It's a really nice yarn. You will also have the lavender sachet that Hayley kindly put in to the parcel, and one of my stitch markers come progress creepers. Lavender parcel, lovely. And I'm popping to the seaside tomorrow. Well, I live by the seaside, but I'm popping into town tomorrow, so I shall find you some sticks of rock as well. So hope you enjoy those. I will wrap them separately because sticky rock, plum fall yarn, that's not nice. And that means that this beauty, the fusion, is mine. Thank you, Hayley. Sorry, I'm a grown woman. No, thank you so much, Hayley. That is really kind. I will make something beautiful and you will all see it in a future podcast. So thank you very, very much. The hat that I use for my drawer is one of my drumming hats. Some of you who've seen the pictures on Instagram, and I'll put one or two up here, I'll give you a warning, this can be quite scary. There you go. Our colours are red and black, and some have been kind to ask about the drumming. I am going to put a link in the notes to coverage which was on local television of Pirate Day, which happened in Hastings in the middle of the month. We were dressed as pirates then rather than in black and red, but you'll see us parading. I think I appear on the far side at about 50 seconds in, but I'm really not the best dressed member of the team or the strongest drummer, so enjoy. It's a BBC bit of footage, so I hope it will play in all parts of the world, so if you're interested, hopefully you'll be able to see that.
Right.
Okay. I'd recorded all of the podcast and then realised I'd forgotten something. Something occurred to me in the shower this morning. Apologies, that's a visual you didn't need. I haven't yet told you about my crochet skulls. I'll put the link for the pattern on the screen, but I thought I'd make these for Pirate Day for drum decoration. So I've got a red one here, made with some of the Texere silk that I'm using for the cardigan, and the rest are just made out of generic double knitting weight yarn in acrylic, just some from my big box of stuff. Pretty simple, neat little pattern. It's a free one on Ravelry, and it's been very well received. I will be increasing the number of skulls around my drum as time goes by. There's a sentence I didn't think I'd say when I woke up this morning. I really do appreciate the fact that you want to spend your time with me, and I'm so grateful. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks also to everyone who commented. I mean, obviously a lot of people commented about the giveaway. Understandable. A few people put some other comments in as well, so thank you for those. I hope I've responded to all comments. If I've missed anyone, apologies. I really have tried to make sure that I come back to everybody. If you have any questions, by all means put them in the notes, or you can do as has been done before and put them in the Ravelry page. If it's something I can answer fairly quickly, like what's that pattern called, then I'll do it straight away. If it's something a bit more in depth, as was the question about how I became a funeral celebrant, then I'll answer that in a future podcast. But please do get in touch. On Ravelry I'm Lahlah, that's spelt Lahlah, and on Instagram and Twitter I'm Knitting or Death. Probably Ravelry is the best place to get hold of me. That's where I'm most active. Instagram I've started to use more, so I mean certainly if you message me on there I'll see the message, but I'm not on there as regularly. and Twitter I tend to use to follow other people who are much funnier than me, so I'm a lurker rather than an active user on Twitter. But yeah, if you want to get hold of me, please do. That's the beauty of social media. I have a list to make sure I don't forget to say anything. Yeah, I think we're pretty much done, so I will carry on in the same vein. Oh no, they all cry. Recording throughout the month and then uploading at the end of August for the next one. Can't believe it's August, or nearly, gosh. Just huge thanks to everyone for taking part. Congratulations again to Anne Crawford. I will be in touch about you getting your prize. Thank you to everyone who took part. Really do appreciate you getting involved. And of course, huge thank you to Hayley for providing the prize. That's really appreciated. Yep, I think we're all done. Have a good month, everyone. I hope that whatever the temperature is where you are, be it hot, cold or indifferent, I hope that you can keep comfortable. I hope it keeps you crafting, because I hope it's not too hot or too cold to craft. And I hope that whatever you make brings you joy. Thanks again. See you soon.